Whether you're taking a new interest in bird and wildlife photography, or you're farther along in your journey and you just want to upgrade your gear, we have some recommendations for you because we're going to be going over wildlife gear, the bodies and the lenses from $280 to $20,000.
Between the two of us, I think we have about 40 years of wildlife photography experience, over 1,000 species of animals, not to mention 12 years of working with all the camera manufacturers to try out literally like every wildlife camera and lens. So our recommendations are the best recommendations, right?
On this channel.
And the best place to shop is KEH because they have the world's largest selection of used camera gear. You can get the best prices.
And with KEH, you can get the top pro gear from a few years ago for a great price, and it's gonna outperform the entry-level new stuff. So you'll be able to find better options. And not only that, they have a warranty period and a return period, so you know that whatever you get, you're going to like it. Thanks KEH for making this video possible.
For only $200, you can get a Canon Powershot zoom used. This produces usable images that are good enough to identify the bird, something you could share on Facebook and tell your neighbors the latest animal that you saw. Is it professional grade? No, but it's a good start. It fits in your pocket and it actually works pretty well.
Next, we're going to jump up to about $900 for a camera body and a lens, and that's going to be the Canon 7D and the Canon 400mm f/5.6. This isn't either of them. I just wanted to hold a camera. We have used that setup extensively, but we don't have all of the cameras on us right now. But what we do love about the Canon 7D is that it's an APS-C camera, but the body build is like a pro level camera. It's got 2 card slots and it's well built. It's got good autofocus system, so it should serve all of your wildlife needs. If you slap that 400mm f/5.6 on it, you're going to get more reach than a 400mm because it's on the crop sensor. It's going to be over 600 millimeters. And a lot of people, when this setup came out, they were tempted to put the zoom lenses on it, like a 150 to 600. But when Tony and I compared a zoom versus the 400mm, we found that the 400mm was sharper even when cropping to the 600mm of the zoom lens. So if you're looking for sharp results at a very reasonable price, check out the Canon 7D and the 400mm f/5.6.
That 7D is an oldie but a goodie. It's a DSLR, which means it has an optical viewfinder like a telescope. And I like that a lot for wildlife because you get a crisp image with no lag. But maybe you want something a little more modern and you're willing to spend up to $1,300. I can recommend this Canon R10 with Canon's 600mm f/11 lens. It's a mirrorless camera. That means it has an electronic viewfinder, like a little LCD screen in the viewfinder there. It still looks nice and crisp and beautiful, and the entire experience is very enjoyable. And because it's mirrorless, you get sophisticated features like animal eye detect, autofocus, which can make it a little bit easier to use, especially for a beginner. The R10 is also a better general purpose camera for people who might be taking just general family travel pictures, especially for video, when compared to that older 7D. But it's not a durable pro body. That's not always a bad thing, because that means it's nice and light. Some people think f/11 isn't fast enough for a wildlife lens, and it's not going to give you crazy background blur like you'd get out of an f4 lens, but it is still fast enough to produce really good professional images. It has great stabilization, so you can shoot pretty long shutter speeds and produce nice clean images. And for those times when you do shoot at higher ISOs, I find modern software cleans it up well enough to look completely pro.
For $1,600, you can get the Nikon D500 with the 200 to 500 zoom lens. I love the D500. I use that camera all of the time. And first of all, the autofocus works really great. You're going to get 10 frames per second, and it's an APS-C camera. So again, you're going to get that like 1.5 times crop comparatively with your focal length. Also, the 200 to 500 is a very sharp zoom. Now, primes are generally more sharp, especially older primes, but this is a sharp zoom, and if you're new to wildlife, it's going to be easier for you. It can often be really difficult to find an animal in a really long lens like a 600mm, so a zoom allows you to kind of open up your frame and see more of what's going on and zoom in once you find your subject. It also gives you more versatility with your shots. You can do wider shots or closer shots and get a variation of pictures out of one lens.
One of my favorite cameras of all time is an unlikely choice for wildlife photography because it was actually designed as a studio camera, but it was the Canon 5DSR with 50 megapixels, no anti-aliasing filter. At the time, it was the sharpest camera you could buy. And I put on that a 500mm f4 lens. And that big prime lens gathered more light than any of the lenses you've seen so far. That gave me crazy background blur, great low light performance. This was such a stunning combination for things like songbirds, still animals, and it still is today. And in fact, it's even better with modern denoising algorithms. Now, it's only 5 frames per second, and the autofocus isn't super fast, not like that D500 we just talked about, but it can shoot moving animals. And in fact, I'm really proud of some of the images that I got of flying birds with it. Still, this is the setup I would recommend for people working with still animals. That big 500 f4 or 600 f4, whatever you can find in the KEH inventory, it's going to be bigger and heavier, and there's no zoom. So what you want to do is sort of plan your shots out a little bit. Maybe bring a tripod if you're not super strong, though I did usually hand hold it. But overall, you're going to see a huge jump in sharpness, in low light quality, which is important when you're in dense woods like this, and also in background blur. You'll get great subject separation, which really gives your pictures that 3D feel, a little bit of pop.
For $4,000 to $5,000, you can get one of my favorite wildlife cameras of all time. That's the Nikon D850. And when it came out, both Tony and I switched to it because we were obsessed with it. It's got 45 megapixels, so it's super high resolution, especially at the time that it came out. But it's got 7 frames per second, which is less than some of the other cameras we've mentioned. However, the autofocus is really good. It's got something called 3D tracking, and so though you might not have as many frames per second, you're going to be sure that more of them are going to be in focus. If you slap a vertical grip on that, then you can get up to 9 frames per second, but I don't like more weight. So I wasn't doing that, and I was doing just fine. I have pictures here to show you. You can get the 500mm f4 prime for like $2,000, or for another $1,000 about, you can get the 600mm f4 prime. Those are pro lenses. You're going to get pro results with the setup. Before we get into the really expensive setups, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsor KEH for not only making this video possible, but for providing photographers with great deals on used gear. And if you're looking to upgrade your gear or get a second body or find a lens that's perfect for whatever you're taking pictures of, head over to KEH and check out their huge selection. No matter what you're looking for, they're going to have something, and it's going to have a warranty, a generous return period. They have people inspecting their gear to make sure it's all good and in working order. And you can get 5% off some gear with our coupon code. I'll put it right here. You have to use the most up-to-date one in the description. So thanks KEH for everything.
This is the next camera I want to talk about, and compared to the previous cameras, the megapixels are about the same. But this has a zoom on it, 200 to 600 millimeters. And this is a mirrorless camera, so you get the fancy features like animal eye detect. It's the Sony Alpha 1, which is maybe the greatest wildlife camera of all time.
How many dollars is it?
It's $6,500 new, but KEH has them for $4,300. And that gets you full frame, 45 megapixels at 30 frames per second raw.
Amazing autofocus. So
amazing.
This is the camera that I currently use, and this lens is the one that I use while I'm in my kayak because it's lighter weight and it's a zoom.
We found this combination to be better than any other zoom currently available, and we literally tested them all in this exhausting comparison review. This is the setup to get at this price point, but wait, it gets even better from here. Let's talk about the money is no object camera gear. This is like $20,000, but it's such a good investment you can't afford not to, right?
Yeah, it's a great investment.
Okay, it seems like a whole lot of money, and it is, but what about your neighbor up the street who has the like classic project car? How much do you think he's dumped into that? Hobbies can be expensive, and if you can afford it, man, it's so fun and the images are so worthwhile. My favorite money is no object camera gear is the Nikon Z9 with their 600mm f4 TC lens. And the TC part of that is game-changing. It's groundbreaking. That means that I can flip this switch and go from 600 f4 to 840 f5.6, still full frame, still 45 megapixels. And I find myself flipping that switch all the time. It's so much more convenient than taking the lens off and putting on a teleconverter.
Stop. I still like the Sony Alpha 1 with the 600 f4 better, and I am jealous of the teleconverter, so if you like that, you should do it. It is very cool.
But what do you like better about the
I
A1?
think that the autofocusing system is better still.
Okay, I agree with you.
This is great. The autofocus, you're not going to use it and think it's lacking, but the Alpha 1 is still better in my mind.
Sony's autofocus system is a little bit better, and the Sony Alpha 1 shoots 30 frames per second RAW, while this only does 20 frames per second RAW. I still like this better because it's got two fast, cheaper cards, the CF Express Type B cards, which saves you some money, and it's got a GPS built in. I love the GPS tagging because I can go to a map and see where all my pictures are taken, and if I see some rare animal or like an injured bird that I need to tell the Department of Environmental Protection about, I can like pinpoint exactly where I was. So that's why I picked that. 0 times, but you never know.
I actually did with my Sony and with my ability to know where I am.
Okay, show off.
Can I also just say, in all seriousness, the Sony setup is lighter. And
it is lighter.
It's smaller and lighter, and so it's not a detachable.
So if you're weak like Chelsea, if you're strong like me, Nikon.
Look, the truth of the matter is, we found great setups and we did the research and a lot of taking of pictures to figure all this out. So if you want more information, you can support us simply by subscribing so you see when we make something new. And of course, we want you to comment down below if you have questions or any ideas of what you want us to do next. And of course, thank you KEH for making this video possible and for providing an excellent place for all photographers to buy used gear. If you want to check out KEH, you can check out the link down below and use our coupon codes as well. Thanks,
Bye.
KEH.
The latest, greatest new gear.
The latest, greatest? I am so dizzy from walking around this tree.
It gets even better from here.
No, it doesn't. This is my favorite.
This is the peak.
This is the peak, but I'll let you continue talking. And the Sony is a lighter setup. And it's also good if you have like arthritic hands or something like that. Don't laugh, I kind of do. It's a common problem, Tony. I'm not getting any younger. I'm done. Let's go get dinner. Are you done? Are you gonna flip this a bit more? You ready? Okay.